Trust me, I'm good for it. I could pay you back. My promises are worth more than their weight in gold. You hear the junkie just around the corner and debate whether to take a different street. You're tired of hearing his promises. But you relent. The power of habit compels you to follow routine. After all, you've walked this road every day since August 15th of 1971. When you turn, you are greeted to a sickly man, thin and scrawny. His condition has worsened since you last saw him, but his outfit hasn't changed. Pinstripes and a top hat. He is shaking and begging. Just one more hit, one more dose, one more stimmy, he says as you pass. He catches your attention and you stop. It's impossible to ignore his pleas for help. You lower your earbuds. The sound of Phil Collins fades away. You are having another day in paradise, but this man clearly isn't. He starts to tell you his story, but you have heard it all before. With him, there is no personal responsibility, only excuses. He goes on and on, down on his luck, trade deficits, welfare, and every other reason you can think of for his plight. He doesn't even remember you or the money you gave him yesterday. His mental health is in decline. Each day he remembers less and less, but he always remembers to ask for money. You turn to leave, but he stops you, and like clockwork, he makes you the promise you have heard 1,000,000 times over. Sam I am, I run these lands. I'm good for my debts, and my promises are worth more than their weight in gold. It's swampy in Savannah, and the people have no teeth. I'm your host, Negative Nick, and this is the No Good News Podcast. So I just got back from Savannah. Savannah. That's a word I've been hearing a lot lately. Was there for a 3-day stay, just got back. The original plan was to go for a week, and by God, am I happy that plan changed. This is a dangerous place to go. The environment is so hostile that I can't even understand how we settled this in the first place. For those of you who haven't been to Savannah, let me paint you a picture. It's 85 degrees. It's humid as hell. You're sticky. The second you get out of the car, your skin is sticking to itself. There are mosquitoes everywhere, more than I've ever seen in my life. And there's still water, and the mosquitoes are just hanging out in the water. There's alligators, crocodiles, I'm not even sure which one. But you've got these things all over, and it's a swamp. As you're driving through the city, and especially as you drive to the beach, which is, just outside the city, there's like a 25-minute highway that you take. And when you look on both sides of you, you're driving on top of a swamp. There's like run-down fishing boats. There's holes in the street. Nothing works in Savannah. Nothing works. Like I said, terrible infrastructure. Stairwells, like when you're going up and down the stairs, there'll just be like a missing step. Or you go to use the elevator and it's broken. We were going out to eat. We were in a parking deck in the city, and my mom was wearing heels, which I advised against because I told her we'd be doing a lot of walking, but she wanted to, so okay, God bless. Well, we get out of the car, and she says, all right, well, there's an elevator. And I said to her, Mom, it's not going to work. We walk over to the elevator. Sure enough, it's broken. So now she's got to walk down the stairs. In Savannah, nothing works. But that's not only true about Savannah, it's true about the whole, that's true in the South. Mississippi, Alabama, northern parts of Florida. Nothing works in the South. I think the average IQ of a person in Savannah is probably like 80, maybe 85. They can barely talk down there. They can't even read. It's like they speak a different language. We ran into this one guy, fully tattooed. Oh, that's another thing. All the white people have tattoos. Why? What's going on? That's gross. And they're ugly tattoos as well. It's like their whole arm. It's not something cute. Like, it's not like a girl with a butterfly or like a cross or maybe the the name of your mom or a former lover. It's not like that. Nothing classy. It's like a whole skull, crossbones, massive rose, sleeve tattooed, biker garbage, disgusting. And that's what you're dealing with in Savannah. It's just so gross. So gross. Cockroaches, spiders, webs, sand everywhere. I mean, that makes sense, I guess, because it's a beach town, but it's like they don't even take pride in cleaning up their city. I mean, when I was in Japan and I went to see a baseball game in the city of Osaka, after the baseball game, the citizens got up and cleaned up the garbage for not only themselves, but for strangers. So when I left that baseball stadium, it was spotless. In Savannah, people are just throwing shit on the street. Cigarettes, vapes, food, you name it. You could probably find it on the streets of Savannah. It's a disgusting place. Now, I still had a good time. My family was there. It was my mom and my brothers. It was a good thing. We all got together as a family. But we all agreed by the end that we would not be revisiting Savannah. So if that's on the top of your list, just take it off completely, I would say. Maybe go to Hilton Head, Myrtle Beach if you want more entertainment. There's plenty of places to go in the South that are much better than Savannah. Trust me, because I've been to all of them. Now, beyond Savannah, which is a trip I recently went on, I was noticing that things are very interesting in the North, specifically in New Jersey, because I was there before Savannah. When I was in New Jersey, my uncle was in the hospital. He's totally fine now. He's a real trooper. And when I was in the hospital, I realized something that's very important in a hospital. In the hospital, it's very important to know about at least one other patient or resident that's doing worse than you are. Very important. Because you can point to that poor bastard and know that you're blessed. So my uncle was fighting demons, surviving day after day. He had some problems with his GI tract, his intestines. Like I said, he's totally fine now. But when I would see him, and you go crazy in the hospital. For those of you who have ever had an extended hospital stay, like my uncle's, it was like 2 weeks, maybe a little more than 2 weeks. You go crazy because you're looking out the same window, and it just so happened that when I was there for that 2-week stint that he was in the hospital, it was never sunny. It was always raining and cloudy. The angel of death was watching over that hospital. So you got the same view, if you're even lucky to have one. I know some people don't even get a view in the hospital. And it's the same nurses, and you're lonely, and you're going insane, and you hear the same people in the rooms next to you. So you need something to give you hope. And that something is knowing that somebody else is worse off. So my uncle would quite frequently talk about another patient who was in the room across from him that wasn't doing so good. But I found that really interesting, and I'm hoping that one day when I'm in the hospital, because I'm sure it's going to happen at some point, I want them to put me in a part of the hospital with just people that are totally fucked. Because my mind can go to dark places. So you're going to have to surround me with some people that are in serious trouble. Speaking of hospitals, our Pope died. Lungs got totally wiped out on this guy. Double tuberculosis, each lung. And, they always say that when a person is going to die, you get the signs, right? That you can tell it's going to happen, right? Maybe they get news from the doctor, or their memory starts to go, or they're moving slowly. Maybe they get a dream. Well, sometimes it's much more obvious. You see, our Pope was visited by J.D. Vance the day before he died. It could not be more obvious. Gave him the kiss of death. Like the Godfather. Comes to the Pope, wants to see the Pope. Pope gives a speech on Easter, dies the next day. In his last speech, by the way, the Pope hated J.D. Vance. I think everybody knows that, as he should. And in his speech, his last speech, the day before he dies, now, he didn't read the speech because he wasn't doing too well, but some other cardinal read it for him. The Pope called for peace and a ceasefire in Gaza. So there have been many times in history when the Catholic Church has been on the wrong side of a war and on the wrong side of history, and it's great to see that this time they're on the right side. And the Pope dies, and then they obviously mourn him, and his killer, J.D. Vance, has the balls to show up to the funeral, and then conclave begins. Now, conclave is awesome, and I say that because I watched the movie. Producer, have you seen the movie Conclave?
No.
Great movie. Do you know what conclave is?
No.
Conclave is the process of selecting a new pope. The way it works is you get all the cardinals. They bring them in from around the world, and the cardinals vote. I think it's like they need a 2/3 majority to choose the next pope. And there's a great movie. I think it's on Amazon Prime. I think it is. Amazon Prime Video. And it's called Conclave. Excellent, excellent movie. I think Stanley Tucci is in the movie. He plays a really good role. And that happened in real life. We had our conclave. They get the smoke. The black smoke comes out of the chimney. And then eventually, it was pretty quick. I forget exactly, but I think it was maybe 3-4 rounds of conclave, like 4 days. They select our new pope. New pope from America, from Chicago. Chicago is a dangerous place, so they need as many blessings as they can get. So our new pope is from Chicago, and he's going to follow in the liberal footsteps of Pope Francis. We haven't exactly seen what he's going to do yet, but I'm happy that he's from America. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be an exciting time for the Catholic Church. I wish him the best. Something else I did in New Jersey. Actually, should I tell a story? Yeah, I'll tell a story. So I'm in the hospital one night, and I'm leaving the hospital. And, because I was visiting my uncle. It was actually my first night in Jersey. So I left North Carolina at like 3 or 4 a.m. And I got to New Jersey at approximately 4 p.m. These times are plus or minus 1 hour in specificity. I visit the hospital, spend my first night with my uncle. I'm leaving the hospital. It's late. It's like 10:30 p.m. As I'm waiting to get in the elevator, there's a Jewish rabbi next to me. He's also waiting to get in the elevator. Thin guy, very thin, weighs less than me. And that's troubling. Older as well, ballpark age 45. Shorter than me as well. We're in a ballpark amount, 5'8". He's looking me up and down, head to toe, not saying a word. I just look straight. I'm not going to start a conversation. He says to me, "Are you here alone?" I said, "No, I was just visiting my uncle. Now I'm heading back to the house." "Are you here alone?" That's what I said. He laughs and he says, "Well, yes, I'm visiting different rooms. I think that this part of town has a lot of Jewish people." So he goes around and says prayers. He says, "So yeah, I'm just doing my rounds for the night." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, that's great. God bless." And he says, "Well, how'd you get here?" And I said, "I drove. I actually just got here from North Carolina. I just got here, and I'm going to go back to my uncle's house, and spend the night." He said, "Oh, so you drove from North Carolina? Wow, that's really impressive. And you came alone?" And I said, "Yes, I came alone." Now it's twice. He's asked me if I've come alone. Now I'm creeped out. Elevator opens. I get in the elevator. To my dismay, it's empty. So now him and I alone in the elevator. This ride cannot end any sooner because he keeps talking. He says, "Well, how old are you?" And I said, "I'm 22. How old are you?" I feel like when people are asking weird questions, I like to just do the hot potato, give it back to them. And he told me he was like in his 40s. I said, "Yeah, I'm 22. And he says, "Really? You look 14. Incredible. I look 14. Now, I'm not going to assign predator vibes to this guy. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But all of a sudden, the questions made a lot of sense. Because he's thinking to himself, holy shit, this 14-year-old drove here from North Carolina. How does he even have a license? He's here unsupervised. Where's this kid's parents? He doesn't even know how to take care of himself. It's dark out. So I actually think it came from a genuine place of concern, because he eyed me up and down and thought I was a minor, and then questioned how I even had a license. I said, no, I'm 22. I'm a working adult. I'm out of college. And he's like, wow, well, you look so young. Now, every time I go to New Jersey, every time, guaranteed, at least one person during my visit tells me I look like I'm in high school. Guaranteed every time. It might be the air that they have up there.
No, they age faster.
They age. Maybe it's too much time on the Jersey Shore, too much vaping and drinking. I have no fucking idea. But every time I go to New Jersey, I get accused of being a minor. But so I just take it in stride. I take it as a compliment. By the way, I hadn't even shaved. I had facial hair. So if I had shaved, he might have thought I was like prepubescent, because he thought I was 14. I hadn't shaved in like 3 days. So whenever I have like an important meeting or something, I sometimes strategically decide not to shave beforehand. Makes me look a little bit older. But even with that quote advantage, he still thought I was young. I leave the elevator. I'm hungry. So I call the diner. I order a burger. I'm going to drive to the diner. Now it's like 11 o'clock, maybe 10:45. The diner's right around the corner. So within 10 minutes, I get out of the car, go into the diner. I'm just going to pick up my food and pay. Hostess comes over to the counter to, give me my food. Totally unprompted. First thing she says to me, my daughter's in high school. What grade are you in? That's 2 people in 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
I said, I'm totally shocked at this one. Especially, what a way to open a conversation. Fascinating. I mean, you're offering up personal information about yourself, that you have a daughter in high school. You're asking me what my age is. This doesn't happen in the South. People don't converse like this. Never happens, ever. I said to her, no, I'm 22 years old. She said, my goodness, you look like you're 16. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit better. I was at 14. Within about 10 minutes, I've upped it by about 2 years. Now I'm at 16. Just an incredible way of life that they have up there. They're so open with each other, very personable. And I mean, apparently they just age rapidly because I look young. Now, maybe I do look young in the South as well, but people don't tell me. People just think, oh, this guy's a kid, whatever. But up there, they're very forward with it. When on another visit, I was with my aunt and my uncle, and they had some friends, and the friend, like one of my aunt's friends, also thought I was like in high school. Like, it's just super weird. It happens all the time. So that was cool. But at least I've got my youth with me, and I think part of it might just be how healthy I eat up there. When I'm up in Jersey, I get, my uncle takes very good care of me. We always eat lean, nice piece of meat, maybe some fish, crabs, scallops, lobster, steak. They eat very healthy up there. And whenever I'm up there, I feel much better. Because then when I come to the South, I'm an addict, right? So I hit that sweet tea, the Bojangles, the cookout. I mean, it just makes me, I've got to take a drink. My mouth's watering already. But, I eat good food up there, so I feel younger. And one way that we get nice food in the Northeast up there in Jersey is we go to a place that is it can only be defined as pure Americana. And we call this place the Restaurant Depot. You heard of this, producer?
No.
So the Restaurant Depot is a food store for restaurants. So it's like a BJ's or a Costco situation. Like, you got to buy a membership. And in order to become a member, you have to give them like your restaurant ID number. And then you go in and they sell bulk everything. You could get like a 20-pound piece of steak. In the freezer in the back, they've got pigs and cows. hanging on the walls, and like they'll cut them for you right there. I mean, it's like a slaughterhouse in the back. They've got packages of like Rice Krispie treats. They'll have a box of like 300 Rice Krispie treats, like portion sizes that like are unfathomable, right? Plates, like nice silverware, bathroom. Like whenever you go to a restaurant, they've got the sign. And it's a black and white sign for men and women. It's like the silhouette of a boy and a girl. They've got those. Like they sell that in there. Like all the stuff you would need to like retrofit, to upgrade your restaurant, they've got in there. And my uncle used to have a restaurant, or I don't really even know what the story is, but he still has his membership. This place is truly magnificent. I mean, it could serve as like a bomb shelter. It's a warehouse. It's huge, huge. More food than one could possibly fathom. Great. It's my favorite place. I think Wegmans, which is a food store, and Restaurant Depot are probably my two favorite places to go in New Jersey. And yes, they're both just food stores. It's a cultural experience. It's great. Another thing I did when I was up there was I saw a few movies. I mean, I told you guys I watched Conclave, but I went to the theaters and I saw two movies up there. I saw Warfare. Warfare was I'll use the word indie. It was an indie film made by a studio called something like A24. I believe that's the name of the studio. Can we look this up? Thank you, producer. It is A24. He's so good with the Google. He already had it for me. So A24 is the producer, the studio that made this movie Warfare. It's about some SEALs that are trapped in a house in like Afghanistan. And it's a great movie, extremely good movie. Now, would I recommend this movie for women? No, definitely not. I mean, it's very violent. And to be honest, it's kind of scary. I have a few friends that are in the Air Force and in the Armed Forces, and they actually had to leave the theater because it was so powerful for them. So like it is a dark film, but it's a movie about sacrifice and brotherhood. It's a great movie. Well, the movie had been out for a few weeks at this point when I went to go see it. I had been busy, studying for an exam and whatnot. So I go to the movie theater. I'm the only guy in the theater. Perfect. I'm the only one. Trailers are rolling, no one's coming in. I think look at me. I'm the luckiest boy in town. Movie starts. We're about 5 minutes into the movie. Movie has started. I see a guy come in. Okay, no problem. Maybe he's just like a surfer, like he just got out of a movie. Now he's going to go into another one without paying. No problem. That's fine. To each their own. Sits right next to me. What the fuck's wrong with this guy? Empty movie theater. Sits right next to me. He smells.
Oh. It keeps getting worse. It keeps getting worse.
The stench is unbelievable.
Oh, damn.
He's not even overweight. So I don't know what the scent is coming from. Because overweight people, like the scent gets trapped in their folds. It's not even that. He's a thin guy. He doesn't say a word to me. He takes my cup holder. He's sitting to my right. The audacity. I had my keys in there, and he just kind of takes out my keys and hands them to me because the movie's playing. It's unbelievable. I know. I can't even. This is crazy. It's going to get weirder. I'm telling you, it's the people of New Jersey. It's something about the North that does this to people. I think it has to be the poisons in the air. It has to be. He takes my cup holder. About 5 more minutes go by. I'm fuming. I just feel uncomfortable. You had the whole movie theater and you sat right next to me. I just get up and I change seats. I just go behind him. I get up. He watches me. I go to my left because he's on my right. So I go to my left. I leave the aisle. I go one aisle backward. I don't want to sit in front of him. I don't even want him to see me. At this point, I feel uncomfortable. So I just go a row behind and I watch the rest of the movie. Great movie. Would highly recommend it. I'm sure it'll make its way to streaming at some point. Okay, great movie. Now, Star Wars Episode 3 gets re-released in movie theaters. You seen this movie? I know you have. Of course you have. Good. Great move. Great movie. Probably, I would say it's actually, I think it's the best of the original 6. I stand by that. I really do stand by that. A great movie about a tragic hero, or I guess you could say anti-villain, as we see Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader. Lots of lots of political allegories. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But before I start talking about I'll briefly talk about the movie and how it relates to modern day. But before I get to that, I'm in the movie theater. I'm the only guy in the theater. It's a matinee showing. So I sneak away from work like a degenerate to go watch a 2.5-hour movie or whatever. I'm the only guy in the theater. Again, somebody comes in and sits next to me. I can't even believe it. You see, I wasn't going to tell this story on the podcast, but when it happened twice, I was like, this has to be mentioned. I mean, what's going on? I'm a firm believer that if something happens twice, it's a systemic, it's a trend. A pattern is emerging. So why are people sitting next to me in an empty movie theater? Do I have a calming presence? I don't think so. I try to be as off-putting as possible. So I don't think it's my calming presence. I don't know what it is. Once again, guy sits next to me. He didn't smell this time. Sits next to me. It's always a guy, too. I mean, it's only happened twice. I have a small sample. But I just couldn't imagine a woman doing this. I mean, do women even go to the movie theater alone? I don't even know.
Not as much.
Not even. Actually, I think the last time I saw a woman in the movie theater was when I saw Barbie. And I've seen a lot of movies between then and now. Maybe it's just less common. I don't know. But
Or the kind of movie.
yeah, it might just be different audiences. Yeah, different strokes for different folks. But sits next to me again. Ridiculous. Okay, that's enough of that. Now let's talk about how, we've got political comparison. So, and I'm not going to get too detailed here, but it is kind of worth mentioning. So, in Star Wars, the original movies are literally about tariffs. Did you know this?
No.
Perfect. When you read the opening crawl of the original Star Wars movies, you know how the words in yellow come on the screen? It literally says that a dispute over intergalactic trade routes between the Trade Federation and the planet of Naboo have drawn the entire galaxy into war. It's literally right now. That's what's happening right now. Disputes over trade routes and tariffs and embargoes and all this bullshit leads to conflict. And that is what Star Wars is about, which is fascinating. And you can watch the movies and enjoy them without understanding the underlying political sensibilities of it. But the original 3 movies do have a lot of politics, and it's just the politics of tariffs. So it's very, very interesting. So I liked that. And also, I get a lot of, in my mind, I was drawing a lot of comparisons between Anakin Skywalker and Donald Trump. Because, Anakin is the chosen one, as we all know. He is the one that will bring balance to the Force. He is supposed to eradicate the Sith, bring balance to the Force, and by removing evil from the universe, unite the galaxy under peaceful rule. And that's why the Jedi are peacekeepers and not soldiers. But Trump was the chosen one. It was said that he would destroy the Sith. He would destroy the liberals, the woke, the corruption. He would bring balance to America, not leave it in darkness. But that's what he's done. So it's so, the comparisons are just incredible. Anakin gets corrupted. Trump's been corrupted. Anakin talks about the evils of corruption early in his tenure as a Jedi. Trump runs for his first term talking about corruption. Famously in his debate, he says, "I've given money to all the people on the stage." That's how Anakin was. But then eventually, just like Anakin, Trump is corrupted and co-opted by power. And that is why I think the movies are extremely, prescient? Yeah, they're very prescient right now. Finally, I leave the North and I travel south. My brother is graduating from college. My brother graduated from UNC Charlotte. He got his bachelor's degree. And this was actually the first college graduation I had been to as a guest. Obviously I attended my own graduation. So I'm attending this thing as a guest. And my father, he has a cane. He can't really climb stairs anymore. That's what a full life of physical labor does to you. So we get some ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. We get some priority disability seating. And we've got prime real estate. We're right next to the stage. We see everybody. And you see these kids walk across the stage, and they put them on the Jumbotron. They got a big TV going. These kids are ugly. I mean, what's going on? They're okay. I mean, where do I even start with this? Okay, first off, they're all obese. Nobody's in shape. What happened? We used to be elite warriors, soldiers. These guys are behemoths. They could barely fit in their gown. You've got people that can't even zip up the gown. That's how overweight they are. I mean, what happened? This is a public university. They're going to look at these photos for the rest of their lives. And you know what? Well, Nick, some people are genetically predispositioned to being overweight. Okay, fine. I understand that. I'm not trying to point fingers or anything like that. I totally get it. But let's put that aside. They're just chopped. I'm looking at the faces. This is men and women. The men are, I mean, maybe this is because I'm straight, but the men are real ugly. I mean, it's almost like they're competing on who can be the ugliest. They've all got long hair. Whatever happened to a nice, tight haircut? All these guys, hair down to the shoulders, past the shoulders. You've got, what do you call this thing when it's long in the back? What do you call that?
Mullet?
Thank you. It's a mullet. They've got mullets, down to the hair, down to the shoulder. Disgusting. Disgusting. Riddled with acne. Just riddled. You can tell from a distance that they smell. They're dancing. They're going across the stage, and people, they call your name, you walk across the stage, you shake the hand, and that's it. Because although it's your moment, in a very real sense, we don't care about you. Get off the stage. There's 500 kids. We're all hungry. Let's get out of here. But you've got, and I hate to say, I'm sorry, producer, they're always black. They're doing dances. I mean, I don't mean to, I'm just saying, not a single white or Asian person did a dance, not even a Hispanic. And Hispanics have great dance moves. It's always the black kids. And they come on, and they've got their regalia, their scarves, and it's some flag from an African nation you can't even identify. And they start crip walking, dancing, trying to, have an audience, their Cardi B moment. There's no class anymore in these young kids. But it's just everyone's ugly. They're all overweight. Some people are dancing. And to top it off, I'm going to ballpark it. 70% of these kids, when they walk across the stage, they don't even shake the hand of the president. The president of the school gives you your diploma, when your degree, when you walk across the stage. The kids don't even shake the hand. They just walk right past him. And I'm looking at the president, and I feel bad for him because you can tell he feels awkward. He'll extend his hand for a handshake. They just ignore him, and they walk off the stage. Whatever happened to class and professionalism in this country? And all these kids have degrees. They're never going to find jobs. Art degrees, music, interpretive dance. There were a very small percentage of these people had degrees where you could say, that's a very easily marketable skill. The whole thing was really a tragic event. It was really a great tragedy. Because these kids have debt. They do. And they can't find jobs, and they lack the professionalism to even secure an interview. At my company, I facilitate. I work very closely with the hiring department, specifically for young actuaries. The kids today have no skills, no social skills. And whenever I talk to people, they always say, Nick, you're young. Nick, you're 22 years old. Why are you saying the kids today? Well, because there's a very clear divide between me and these new kids. They don't know how, they can't hold eye contact. They can't speak they can't even form sentences anymore. I see it with my own brother, God bless his soul. He could barely talk, this kid. He's 16 years old. I worry about him. I try to get him to read. He tells me I can't. I'm going to tell it anyway. I'm sorry, buddy, if you're listening to this. He's got a girl now, which is great. Yeah, she's good. She's nice. She plays soccer.
Okay.
He goes to the soccer game to support her. That's a good thing. He's on the sidelines with the girl's mom and dad. The family's there. Now, his girlfriend, their team is losing. They're getting destroyed. I don't even know what the score was. It doesn't matter. And my brother turns to the mom and says, why is it that the ball is always on that side of the field? I kid. Okay, well, the obvious answer is because they're getting destroyed. So they are just perpetually playing defense. I mean, this is the kind of intellect we're dealing with today. Where even our strength as Americans, which is athletics, even that's lost on the youth. They can't even understand that anymore. So I don't know what's going on in this country. I mean, what's happening to America? I've got America has become working for a multi-level marketing company. That's what it's become. I go on LinkedIn. I'll confess. A lot of people spy on Instagram. I don't care about that. I spy on LinkedIn. I like to find people on LinkedIn and just see how they're doing. Whatever. People I know are putting in their bio entrepreneur, and then they put a company name. I get excited. I look them up. It's a multi-level marketing. This is a lot. A lot of these people are doing this. And these are people that went to High Point that I know. These are good-looking people. High Point, usually if you're good-looking, it's easier for you to get a job. We like to treat those people better in society. Even them, they're doing multi-level marketing. I mean, it's so strange. Like, I've been doing like a cultural analysis of what America is becoming. America's become a place where you ostracize your friend, not because they cheated on their spouse, but because they cheated with a person of a different race. This is a real thing I've seen recently. I know somebody that cheated, the wife cheated on the husband. The wife cheats on the husband, and the wife's friends are fine that she cheated, no problem. But they won't talk to her because she cheated with somebody that was a different race. What? What's going on? That's what America is becoming. America is now going to a music festival using buy now, pay later because you can't afford your tickets. Have you heard about this?
No.
There was some music festival, Coachella. Is that what it was? Thank you. And it was an absurd number. I forget the percentage. It was let's look this up. I think it was more than half, but that might not be true. It was a very large percentage of people going to this festival bought their tickets using like buy now, like they're going to pay for their ticket in like installments. Here we got the number. 60%. 60%. Look, if you're going to a concert and you can't buy your ticket outright, you shouldn't be going to the concert. 60% of people are getting their tickets and paying for it in installments. That's what America's become. America has become getting your kid a sports car, but you're too afraid to get in the car with them. So you get him a sports car, but you very well know that getting in that thing is a death sentence because you don't even trust your kid to drive. That's what America has become. America is comparing the amount of Botox you've had injected into your face with other stay-at-home moms while you're at soccer practice. It's picking up baking with sourdough bread as a hobby. That's what America is becoming. These are all things that I've witnessed in the last few weeks. And each was just so strange to me. You're baking now? I mean, that's kind of cute. I guess baking is a cute hobby. But when I learned about this, it's like a bacteria. Like you got to take care of it like it's a pet. Like you put it in a jar or something and you got to like feed it. That's weird. I don't know, that's too far for me. You got to feed this colony of bacteria you've got growing in the pantry. And like if you don't make bread often enough, the colony will like overpopulate and you got to move it into a bigger jar or some shit. That's my understanding, at least. I didn't really ask too many questions because I thought it was weird and I changed the subject. But that's what America's become. So, more of what America is, I know that was a lot of personal stuff, and I know that you guys don't come here to listen to me about my personal life. You don't care. You couldn't care less about me. So, now let's move on to the perils of this great nation. We're talking economic policy, and we're going back to the intro of this episode. If you couldn't catch it, the junkie is Uncle Sam. You see, in August of 1971, Richard Nixon officially ended the gold standard. And the world, rather than backing their money with gold, backed their currencies in trust, belief, and faith in America and its ability to pay off its debts. I'm not going to give a full history lesson here, but we abused that privilege. We printed a lot of money. We ran massive trade deficits, which started in the 70s. This might not be true, but if I'm wrong, I'm off by like a year. We don't even have to look this up. The perpetual trade deficits in America started in, I believe, 1971, which is when we ended the gold standard. But if it wasn't 71, it might have been like 68 or it might have been like 73, like somewhere in that window. So we've been running these trade deficits, and every single time we record an episode, I always like to give you guys the newest number. And I always say, can we get higher? Can we get that trade deficit higher than what it was last month? And I'm happy to report that we've done it again. So in the month of March, we had a trade deficit of $162 billion. You guys might remember that a few episodes ago, we were in the 150s. You remember that, producer? Mm-hmm. Keeps going up, baby. These are rookie numbers. Let's see how high we can get. Now, that goes against the narrative, because the narrative is that tariffs are going to revive American industry and that it's going to reduce imports. But if you look at the deficit, the $162 billion trade deficit that just came out in March, which printed in March, remember, the tariffs started before March. Let's not forget that. Like, we had some tariffs, and then Liberation Day happened in... When did we record the last episode? Early April? Yes. So Liberation Day was early April. So Liberation Day and all those insane tariffs were after this report was printed. But even before that, as we all know, Trump was already throwing out some tariffs since he got elected. Not only did imports increase, therefore driving up the deficit, but exports decreased. And we lost manufacturing jobs. So the entire narrative that tariffs are going to boost American manufacturing is proving false. Well, Nick, it's only been a few months. That's a great argument. But the loss of manufacturing jobs is just following trend. And we can't produce these goods in America because we don't have the infrastructure. And the costs would be insane. The labor costs alone would make the products unaffordable. So unless Americans are willing to work for $5 an hour in a factory, which they're not, imports are always going to be cheaper than exports. Always. It's simple. It's called comparative advantage. We should continue exporting what we're good at, which is services, healthcare, education, software, entertainment like movies. We should focus on what we're good at. You know, they always say, jack of all trades, master of none. It's better to be the master of one. Focus on what you're good at in life, not what you're bad at. People have God-given talents, and you should pursue those talents. We shouldn't be trying to retrofit the economy and go back to the 1800s. It's a mistake. So we just printed a new massive trade deficit. And these tariffs with Liberation Day, because once again, the last episode was recorded on Liberation Day, but since then we've seen the fallout. Well, what has the fallout been? Did things go as expected? Did we scare the world into giving us favorable trade deals? Keep in mind that we already have favorable trade deals because by definition, we import more than we export. We are a junkie. We're a junkie who needs more debt and more cheap goods and another shot of heroin. We import way more than we export. If the world had any sense, they would literally just stop giving us things because we never pay them back. But the world has been walking this road since 1971, and out of habit, they just keep giving us their stuff, and we just give them printed money and fake and false promises. So Trump's whole concept that we're getting ripped off on trade is false. We are ripping off the world. They give us things, we give them printed money. So that's already. But did we get these great trade deals that he wanted? No, we did not. As of recording this episode, Trump has cut one trade deal. That trade deal was with England, the United Kingdom. But we actually run a trade surplus with England. So of course they're going to cut a deal. Of course. And the deal's not even that good. It's basically just a reversion to what we've had before. But of course they're going to come to the table because we run a trade surplus with them. All the countries that we run trade deficits with, we haven't even cut a deal. Even Japan is still totally pissed off at us. The plan is not working. Markets crashed. Gold soared. We're going to talk about gold in a minute here. But markets totally crashed. I actually think they might have recovered now. I do think they've recovered since their initial losses. But that recovery is false hope. The stock market is not a demonstration of true economic health. We've always known this. It's a demonstration of how people feel about the economy and what they wish to be true. The market is inflated. It's been inflated for years. It's been inflated for, you could even argue, since 2008. Like the market, or I guess 2010 was when the recovery was. The market really should have never even recovered in 2010. But our entire system is built on inflation and cheap money and debt. So that's why the prices of stocks and houses keep going up. Eventually, Trump relented on his tariffs. He backed down. He cut a deal with China. The China tariffs are, I believe, 35% now. That might be inaccurate. It might be 25%. But like, he's lowered them from the initial preposterous 145. But let's be clear, even 20%, and the tariffs are above that. I'm pretty sure they're 25 or maybe even 35. But even a tariff of 10% is going to cause extreme damage in the American economy. We already have stories. Amazon, did you hear about this, what Amazon was going to do? Amazon was going to post on their website, whenever you go to buy something, they were going to show you the price, and then they were going to show you the addition to that price due to tariffs. Let's say it was $20. They were going to show you $20 and then $10 of tariffs, so you pay $30. So Amazon was going to show you what the tariff costs, you, the consumer, because as we all know, despite Trump's lies, and as I've discussed before, tariffs are a tax on consumers. Trump calls up Jeff Bezos, probably threatens him with all sorts of things. Amazon backs down. That's illegal. That's coercion already. That's market manipulation and a crime. But as we already know, nothing's going to happen. So Amazon backed down. Walmart comes out and Target. They're raising their prices. It's already happening, guys. The tariffs are here. I went to go buy a mount, like a mount for my car, so I could put my phone on the mount and I can look at my phone while I'm driving rather than having it in my cup hole. It's a phone mount. We all know what this is. I've never had one because I'm slow to adapt. This thing was like $40. That's the tariff.
Oh my God.
That's the tariff. We've got $40 phone mounts when it should be like $15. Because even though the tariffs have now gone down to, let's say, 25% from China, all the goods that got imported during that 1 month period or whatever, between when they were 145 and now, well, all those goods, they have to be sold at the higher tariff rate. You understand? But even 10%, even 20%, even 5% is a very high tariff because the other countries retaliate with their own. So eventually Trump had to pull back his tariffs. He did what's called he did a 90-day pause. He claimed victory, but he had to do a 90-day pause because the entire economy was collapsing around him. And the real reason he had to do a pause, which no one's talking about, the real reason he did a pause is because the bond rate, the bond market, hit 5%. So the government had to pay 5% interest on new debt, on their 30-year, the 30-year bond hit a 5% interest rate. The government's broke. We have no money. We can't afford to pay 5%. See, back in the day, interest rates were 10%. Interest rates were 6%, whatever. And that was considered normal. A normal rate of interest was considered 6%. Now, 5%, and the government goes crazy because that's how broke we are. So when the bonds hit 5%, Trump had to back off on the tariffs. The reason that bond yields were going up was because everyone was selling their bonds. International buyers and institutions were fleeing the dollar. The dollar was getting weaker. I'm going to Japan in a few months. The exchange rate went from 160 yen to like 142 or something like that. So now when I go to Japan, it's going to cost me a lot more money, which upsets me. So when the bonds hit 5%, Trump had to pull back on the tariffs. And if I remember correctly, I still think I think now we're at like 4.9. So we're basically kissing 5%. With these high rates on the bonds, the government is going to have to declare, they're going to have to declare bankruptcy. They're going to have to default. In fact, they've actually basically already have. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, came out on TV and he was asked, will the U.S. government default? He says no. He has to say that. But then he says, debt that was issued to foreign borrowers, we may have to extend the maturity and decrease coupon payments. Okay, well, that's a very sophisticated sentence. Let's explain what that means. When you buy a bond, the maturity is how long it is. So earlier I said a 30-year bond hit 5%. 30 years, we'd call that the maturity. That's the amount of time on the bond. Bonds pay interest. Earlier I said that the interest rate hit 5%. The way bonds pay interest is every 6 months, you get a check in the mail for your interest. Does that make sense, producer? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We call that check, your interest check, we call that your coupon. So Bessent comes out and says we're going to have to extend the maturities and decrease the coupons. That's default. So let's say you have a 30-year bond. They're going to extend it to be 45. That's illegal. When you bought the bond, you bought it for 30 years. And now the government is going to say to you, well, screw you, we're actually making it 45. That's default. That's what that is. You're defaulting on your financial obligations. Or you could cut the coupons, which means that instead of getting $100 in the mail, they're going to give you 75. Both of these are forms of default. And now it's on the table. I've been saying this for years, that the government was going to have to default, and it's finally on the table. Trump comes out on TV and says, no, actually, we're getting rid of the tariffs because all these countries are coming to us. China is calling me, and they're begging for a trade deal. China comes out and says, we've never called Trump. And everyone goes on the news and they say, art of the deal. Trump is so brilliant. It's the art of the deal, which is the name of Trump's book. So when we have the tariffs, people say, we need the tariffs to boost American industry. Then when he removes the tariffs, they say it's the art of the deal. So they always give him credit. Trump's over here using the art of the deal. China's using the art of war. A famous Chinese book written by Sun Tzu called The Art of War. So we're doing the art of the deal. We've got this con man in the White House. And they're playing the art of war. China's been around for thousands of years. They know what they're doing. And we're not going to defeat them in this trade war, especially when we have none of the cards. Trump told Zelensky that he doesn't hold the cards. Well, that's true. Zelensky doesn't hold the cards when it comes to his war. But we, the United States, we don't hold the cards when it comes to our trade war. And trade wars often lead to real wars, Star Wars. Now, well, Nick, if people are selling the dollar, where are they going? What other safe haven asset could they possibly go to? Is it the euro? Is it the Swiss franc? No, it's gold. Here are the numbers. Let's talk about it. On January the 1st of this year, gold was $2,670 an ounce. That's pretty hefty, especially because just a few years ago, it was like 1,300 or something. That was on January the 1st. By April the 2nd, it was 3,160. In just 3 months, gold basically jumped 50%. How could that be? Well, it's because of these tariffs and Trump's insanity. Okay, now, Liberation Day happens, which was, I believe, when is April Fool's? May the 3rd? April the 1st? Okay, so Liberation Day was the 2nd. Perfect. So on Liberation Day, it was 3,166. When Liberation Day happened, the stock market tanked, and all the financial institutions that had calls, and if you don't really know about like stocks and the way options work, a call is you're basically gambling that the price of a stock will go up in the future. And if that is true, you can redeem your call option and you get money. So a call is a type of option. It's a derivative investment. Okay, that's as technical as I'm going to get on that. Well, all these financial institutions had calls, which means they were betting on stock prices going up. When the stock market crashed just after Liberation Day, we all remember when that happened on the news, all these financial institutions got what's called a margin call, which basically just means they've got to pay out. Since their options are losing value, they have to put up more collateral. They have to put up more cash. But the financial institutions couldn't sell their stocks because there was mass selling and they would be selling at a loss. So instead what they did was they sold their gold. It's a reserve asset. That's what it's used for. So when the markets were crashing, these financial institutions panic sell their gold to get money. They sell their gold for dollars, and they use those dollars to cover their margin calls and their positions in the market. Well, that mass selling made gold go from 3,160 on April the 2nd down to 2,970 on April the 7th. It's a pretty big swing for gold. You know, what is that? That's a $200 move in 5 days. And for gold, that's very extreme. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, that's a total steal. Gold should never be below 3,000 again in my entire lifetime. Now it's 2,973. It wasn't going below 2,900. Even that is a huge, insane bargain. But I was saying it's below 3,000. It's probably going to go above 3,000 in just a day or two. You know, because the floor really should be 3,000 for gold. The market had solidified that floor. Well, sure enough, by the 11th of April, boom, 3,244. New all-time high for gold. Wow, can we go any higher? Because now that the financial institutions have sold their gold to cover their positions, all these other countries like China, Russia, India, they say, oh my God, it's below 3,000. Let's buy it. It's on discount. And, you know, unlike a stock where you're buying low, but like it could be risky, gold really isn't a risky asset. So they all buy it. Price goes up to a new all-time high, 3,244. That's the 11th. April 16th, 5 days later, 3,350. Boom, another all-time high. Can we go higher? The 21st of April, 3,472. Can we go higher? The next day, the 22nd of April, gold eclipses 3,500 for the first time. Remember, January 1st, it was 2,670. Massive swing in gold. Everyone's talking about their stocks, how the market's tanking, and gold, the reserve asset, is doing its job, providing stability for markets, keeping the world afloat, and demonstrating that the world is tired of the dollar, tired of America, and tired for our drug addict, binging, heroin-addicted personality, manic personality, constantly borrowing money and abusing the system. Now, admittedly, 3,500 is a very high price, higher than it should be. But people are buying out of panic. Okay, well, then we drop 4-23, and basically where we are today. So since about the 23rd of April, gold has essentially held constant at 3,300. I believe we're a little above that right now. But effectively, we're at 3,300. So if we do back of the napkin math, we are up $700 since the beginning of the year, representing a 26% increase in just this year. Keep in mind that last year, we already went up like another 30% or something crazy like that. So in just 2 years, or no, not even, in a year and 4 months, we've basically had a 50% move in gold. And that isn't going to change. I do believe that now at this point, I think 3,300 is effectively the new floor. We might have some swings below that, but 3,000 is certainly the floor. Certainly. I'd be very shocked if we were to like go to 2,900 for a significant period of time. The market recovers. The stock market recovers. Trump comes out and says he's not going to fire Jerome Powell. And the reason that he says that is Powell comes out and he admits, he says, Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, says that, quote, American deficits have reached a, quote, crisis level, and the federal debt is, quote, unsustainable. To have the chairman of the Federal Reserve saying that is extremely, extremely dangerous. We're going to wrap up this financial segment very soon. Just want to give a few more numbers and a few more insights. 26 of the $36 trillion of debt that the United States have, 26 trillion of it, out of the 36, will mature, expire, within the next 4 years. 12 trillion of the 36 trillion, which is a third of our debt, will expire before June. Before June. It's April. It's May. So before the end of the month, 12 trillion of our debt is going to expire within the next month, which means that the Treasury is going to have to borrow more money, right? Because whenever the debt expires, we're broke. We can't pay it back. So just like the junkie, we borrow from someone else. We borrow from Peter to pay Paul. So before the end of this financial quarter, the government is going to have to borrow $540 billion just to pay off the interest on the debt we already have. And that is why when the interest rates on the bonds hit 5%, Trump had to back off. The debt is unsustainable. It's spiraling out of control, and it is not going to be good when things come crashing down. Okay, well, Nick, that's why we elected Trump. We elected Trump because he's financially responsible. Democrats print money. Democrats can't do math. Democrats create debt. Well, here's some data. Republicans are looking to approve an increase of $5 trillion to the national debt over just the next 2 years. This includes a $1 trillion military budget. Currently, the budget for the military is approximately $880 billion per year. They want to make it $1 trillion a year. As Trump says, it's a nice round number. So we're going to make that military budget $1 trillion a year, which means that on a yearly basis, we're going to have a $2 trillion deficit. And that is the conservative estimate. But as I said, it's probably going to be $2.5 trillion this year, which is why I said over the next 2 years, the debt should probably increase by about $5 trillion. Mortgage rates are tied to Treasury rates. And that is why mortgage rates keep going higher and higher. I think the mortgage rate right now just hit like 7%, 7.3. I mean, it depends on your credit score, but I just saw some recently where like the average mortgage rate is now 7%. Well, that's a function of bonds and debt. And once again, it varies on your credit score. But they said like the average new homeowner is getting a mortgage rate of 7%. Thank you for confirming that, producer. I appreciate you. Now, top it off, Moody's. So the way that government debt works is it gets a rating. AAA, AA, single A, triple B. Whenever you buy a bond or an investment, it gets a rating from the ratings agencies. There's 3 ratings agencies. S&P, which we've all heard of because of the S&P 500. Moody's, which is another company, and Fitch. Those are the 3 rating agencies. Well, the Fitch and S&P, they downgraded U.S. bonds many, many years ago. But Moody's, the last holdout, just came out and they downgraded American bonds from AAA to AA, which made yields spike again and the dollar to fall. Guys, the financial system is completely unwinding. People are just closing their eyes. They're going to keep dancing. They're going to keep drinking from the punch bowl. But soon, the music will stop and the party is going to be over. And I'm very, very afraid for what's going to happen to this country when it does. Trump wants you to get back in the factory. He starts talking about, he said, quote, Trump tells graduates with business degrees to forge steel and pour concrete. That's such an encouraging message as a new graduate of college. You got that MBA, you got that business administration degree. You could put that to real good use pouring concrete and forging steel as we reindustrialize the United States. This is a literal quote from Donald Trump. You can look that up. And then while all this is happening, the infrastructure of our country has completely collapsed. I'm going to talk about the state of New Jersey. You have sinkholes happening on the highways for my northern viewers, which I know are a significant percentage of my viewers. You're driving down the highway, you're driving down the turnpike, boom, a fucking hole appears in front of you. It looks like a puddle because of the optical illusion, but you fucking fall into this hole and you die. They've got sinkholes all over the state now. They're saying it's because of old mines that caused, fractures under the soil. Okay, well, you know what? Driving's unsafe. Let's take the train. Oh, just kidding. All the train workers are on strike, so that ain't going to work out. So the trains aren't running either. So you've got people who work in New York City and live in Jersey. They can't get to work using the train. Gosh, okay, well, maybe we can at least fuel tourism, specifically business tourism. A lot of people use Newark Airport for if they got to go to work, like in New York City, a lot of business flights. Well, here we go. 20% of air traffic controllers at Newark Airport have walked out in response to two key things. Number one, layoffs, because Elon Musk, we're not really going to talk about Elon Musk in this episode, and he's kind of stepped back from the government because his company of Tesla has completely exploded. But even though Elon has stepped back, he's still got his minions doing work at the Department of Government Efficiency. They laid off a bunch of air traffic controllers. I'm sure you heard about that in the news. Well, in response to those layoffs, the air traffic controllers were overworked. Well, then, for 60 seconds, it might have been 30 seconds, but I'm going to say 60. For 60 whole seconds, radar went down at Newark Airport. It is an absolute blessing that no one crashed, that nothing happened. Now, keep in mind, we've already had 7 plane crashes in the United States this year. And before this year, we had like a perfect record. We've had 7 in just this year. And the air traffic controllers, one went out on the news and said, don't fly out of Newark. It's unsafe. So now you've got a strike. I saw a thing on the news just a few days ago. One air traffic controller was in charge of all landings and departures out of the entire airport for over 3 hours. Can you imagine? It's so insane that it doesn't even sound real. This is what our country's become. This is the state of America. This is our economy. Thank you guys for listening. We're going to take a quick ad break as we come to the final few segments of our episode. We have never known the true value of American freedom and the sacrifices some would endure to achieve it. Until now. Join us this summer on Fox Nation for the first season of The American. The American will pit 20 illegal aliens against each other in a competition for citizenship. Watch as these desperate illegals reveal their inner nature in a series of challenges that only Hispanics could endure. Climbing walls, digging tunnels, and sacrificing each other for a life of prison time are only some of the trials our contestants will face. Sponsored by the Department of Homeland Security and hosted by our very own Secretary, Kristi Noem, The American will be a smash hit of this summer. So join us and find out who really deserves to be here. Back from the ad break, we're talking foreign policy. A lot is going on in the world, guys. Dangerous times, very, very dangerous times. You know, There was a famous JFK quote that I want to start this conversation with. I'm sure many of you have heard it before. JFK once said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for Israel." And JFK was absolutely right. So let's take a few moments and talk about what you and I can do for Israel. We can support the carpet bombing of Gazans. We can support the deportation of students here who protest against Israel. We can allow Israel to give infinite money to all of our leaders and control our foreign policy. This is not only what's right to do, but it is just. How can you support Israel? Once you know that question, you'll finally know how to truly be an American. So here's what's going on. Israel has announced their final solution, to quote a Nazi term. They're conquering the Strip, baby. I mean, we know what's been happening. And every time I talk to you guys, are like, Nick, oh my gosh, so much Israel talk. Well, guys, that's because it keeps happening. It keeps evolving. Nothing's changed. Israel has announced that they're going to sequester large swaths of land. Trump's totally okay with it. The Israelis were starving the people of Gaza. The world started freaking out. Even Trump and his people and how Zionist and crazy they are, even they were like, I don't know, guys, this is getting kind of crazy. It's getting kind of extreme. So Israel's like, you know what? No problem. Let's compromise. We're going to allow 5 trucks, 5, you heard that correctly, 5 trucks to enter Gaza. And these trucks can have all sorts of things, food, tents, whatever the people need, we'll give it to them. Well, upon further investigation, we found out that of those 5 trucks, about 2 of those trucks is just body bags. So, like, it's so dark. It's just dark. And the way that this government is just in the pocket of Israel is crazy. Now, there was a slight breakup, a little bit of turmoil. Remember this guy? I forget his name. He was a national security advisor. He's the guy who added the journalist to the Signal group chat. Can we look this guy's name up? Well, whatever his name is, which we will have for you in just a moment, he got removed from government because Trump found out that this guy was talking to Netanyahu behind his back. So Trump removed this guy from office and apparently ghosted Israel for a few days. We're trying to get this guy's name. We got anything? Maybe? He had a very standard white person name. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties, but that's fine. We'll figure it out. I'll cycle back to that later. Basically, Trump had a slight breakup with Israel because he found out that, to no one's surprise, this guy who was doing the Signal group chat was talking to Israel directly. Israel was influencing this guy, and then Trump was getting in his ear. So when Trump found out, he fired him. He didn't fire him over Signalgate. He fired him because Trump is petty and didn't like that this guy was going to Israel around him. And to be fair, that's wrong. We shouldn't have our government leaders negotiating with other countries without the knowledge of the president. But Trump and his pettiness, that's the reason he laid the guy off. Something else Trump did was he apparently, quote, brokered peace with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Producer, have you seen this on the news?
No.
So basically, we've been attacking the Houthis in Yemen because the Houthis have been blockading Israel. So any cargo ships that approach Israel from the south, from the Red Sea, the Houthis have been either blowing up or capturing or whatever. Well, Trump, to defend Israel and, quote, defend the freedom of trade, which makes no sense because Trump's doing tariffs, which is against the freedom of trade, Trump goes and starts carpet bombing the Houthis. Well, the Houthis fire back. They destroy a bunch of our drones, and in all the chaos, we actually had 2 jets, I think there were F-16 fighter jets, fall off of aircraft carriers into the bottom of the ocean. So we were losing a ton of money, and apparently we spent $1 billion in 1 month fighting the Houthis. So Trump goes to the Houthis and says, Let's have peace. And the Houthis say, well, we'll stop attacking your American ships if you stop bombing us. And the Trump says, sure, no problem. Comes out on the news and declares victory. But like literally, Trump declared victory for a war that he started. But the Houthis are still gonna blockade Israel. So the Houthis weren't like, oh, we'll stop attacking you and we'll allow Israel to get cargo. No, they were just like, we'll stop attacking you. And Trump took that as a win. So that might be tentative. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if that changes in the future. But I mean, like, it's so embarrassing because with all of our might, with all of our bombs, our missiles, our jets, our boats, all of it, we couldn't defeat some desert people over there in Yemen, which is like arguably the most impoverished country on earth. Once again, really emphasizing how just America has totally fallen. But this might sound terrible, but I'm actually kind of happy that the Houthis won because I actually support what they're doing. They're standing up, they're making a stand, they're saying, we're not going to allow this genocide to happen on our watch. We're going to do whatever we can. And part of that includes blockading Israel. So, like, on that ground, like, that's a totally noble cause. So, that happened. But in terms of brokering fake peace deals, let's talk about India and Pakistan. You guys may have noticed in recent weeks that you're getting a lot less spam calls. You're not getting asked for money as much online. And that's because the Indians and the Pakistanis are all busy fighting each other. So India and Pakistan went to war. And here's the story. India had a terrorist attack launched against them. They blamed Pakistan but there was actually no evidence that Pakistan was linked to the attack. Now, maybe they did it, and no evidence could be found. But traditionally, when you declare war on another country, it's more than just a vibe check. Like, you kind of need some evidence. But India, and I went to India, so I can say this from firsthand experience, but also from just general knowledge and research, they have a pro-Hindu nationalist government, hyper-conservative nationalist religious government, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and Pakistan is a Muslim country. So India, in response, floods Pakistan. That's right, you heard that, flood, because they control the dams that go into the country. So they open the dams, and Pakistan gets flooded. Pakistan, in return for this flooding, I forgot to mention, India also launched airstrikes inside of Pakistan as well. Now, India and Pakistan have some, we'll call it territory that's in dispute in the north. It's the states of Jammu and Kashmir, okay? Both Pakistan and India, actually, and China, all three of them claim this land. So not only did India launch airstrikes within the contested territory, but they also launched airstrikes within Pakistan proper. And a lot of people died. Pakistan retaliates, they launch missiles of their own, and very quickly, within just a series of 3 or 4 days, the whole world gets involved. The alliances are quite interesting. The United States, Russia, and France sided with India, which is fascinating. The reason that's fascinating is because the United States gives all of, like, the country of Pakistan gets all of their weapons from the United States. Yet, we were publicly siding with India. And I think the reason for that is because we don't want India to get drawn closer to China. Now, who supported Pakistan? China, pretty obvious. Saudi Arabia, interesting because Trump is very close with the Saudis. And Turkey, who is a member of NATO. So the alliance structure here was super unique, very, very unique. Probably the only conflict on Earth where you could get the United States and Russia on one side, and they're against Turkey and Saudi Arabia and China. Because remember, Russia and China are allies now, and now they were at odds. So the alliance structure was super complicated. Eventually, they strike a tentative ceasefire. You could call it a ceasefire, you could call it a peace deal, whatever. But it's definitely a ceasefire, and now they're in negotiations for peace. The whole thing was, I'm pretty sure, like a week long, maybe a little less than a week, maybe a little more than a week. Trump comes out and claims victory. He takes credit for negotiating the peace deal. India, the people that we were siding with, they come out and they say, we never spoke with the Americans. So like, so Trump is just lying. Trump's like, oh yeah, like I negotiated this great peace between India and Pakistan. I'm a great peacemaker. Give me a Nobel Peace Prize. India's like, bro, you had nothing to do with this. So once again, fake. Lies, more lies. Wrapping up the foreign policy segment, which will be shorter than our previous episodes. Trump is very upset because the Russians don't want to negotiate peace. Within the last few weeks, on multiple occasions, Trump has come out, said that a peace deal was being negotiated, said that a minerals deal was being negotiated, at one point even saying a minerals deal had been approved of. Then things fall apart, and now I believe like today or yesterday, he came out again and said they're doing more peace talks. At this point, I'm not even going to get excited about it because it's happened like 2 or 3 times already where he says there's peace talks and then nothing happens. It's like, and Trump went on Twitter and like a little petulant child was whining and like saying, Vladimir, please stop attacking the Ukrainians in this senseless war. It's like, dude, you're embarrassing yourself, Trump. You're embarrassing yourself. You don't understand how negotiation works. And the Russians want this war. They started this war. The sanctions didn't work. They bulletproofed their economy. They did trade with China. Like, the Russians are fine. They have way more people. And if we're going to be totally honest, the longer the war goes, the more likely Russian victory is. Unless, of course, we like directly get NATO and American soldiers involved, which I don't support. That's a huge escalation. So you have to come to peace with Russia. But if Russia doesn't want peace, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. So like, I mean, I really hope that war ends, but Trump has really embarrassed himself and weakened his position of authority by going back and forth, claiming that he has found peace, but then the war continues. So that was our brief foreign policy segment. We're going to cut to our last ad break, and then we're going to have probably my favorite segment of the day to close out the episode. Are you tired of the gridlock in Washington? The busy schedules of representatives who refuse to lend you an ear? And do you feel like lobbying has become too transactional when all you want is friendship? Then join us at the Executive Club, located right here in the heart of DC. For the low, low price of $500,000 a year, you too can mix and mingle with the most influential leaders on Capitol Hill. Owned by Don Jr. himself, the Executive Club offers a top-shelf bar, Michelin star meals, and more smoky back rooms for deal-making than you can count. To boost our membership and sweeten the pie, all new executives will get to sit with Donald Trump at his birthday military parade on June 14th. So let's be friends, and I will see you at the Executive Club. So yeah, I really appreciate the Executive Club's sponsorship today. And, as part of our, this is true for all of our sponsorship deals. Within the ad, of course, we show true love and admiration for our advertisers. But to maintain my integrity, I'm going to discuss that a little bit further outside of the advertisement, where I can give some honest opinions. This military parade happening on June 14th is to symbolize the 250th birthday, anniversary, whatever word you want to use, for the United States Army. But we all know the real reason. It's because June 14th is Trump's birthday. That's what's actually going on. So he was just like, oh, how convenient that my birthday falls on the anniversary of the Army. Let's have a massive North Korea-style military parade where we have our people do gay marches through the streets with jets, bombs, all sorts of stuff. And we can project our strength to the world. But we all know what's going on here, guys. Those who appear the strongest, those who have to demonstrate their strength, are often the weakest. And that's what's going on here. It's a demonstration of Trump's ego and underlying American weakness on the world stage. So let's have this parade. And if you happen to have 500 grand lying around, maybe you too should join the executive club and get to be buddy buddy with Trump at that parade. I'm sure that the weather's going to be nice. They'll probably use some machinery to control the weather, make sure it doesn't rain. I'm sure we have that stuff. The weather's going to be nice. You could talk jokes, talk shop with Don. It'll be a good time. So, I don't support the parade. I think it's super weird and honestly authoritarian, and let's use the word again, fascist, because that's what Nazi Germany does too. Like fascist countries, Italy, they do military parades. But if you happen to have the money lying around and you want to have a good weekend over there in DC in June, knock yourself out. I wish you the best. More corruption going on here is just a quick quote. It's super quick. RFK, he's been, getting up to some good things, actually. He's talking about taking the dyes out of our food, which I fully support, things like that. So he's actually been getting up to some good work. Now, on the weekends, he likes to go bathing in polluted, toxic rivers with his wife and grandchildren, which just shows his mental illness. But besides what he does in his free time, I think he's been doing good things for, in terms of like getting toxins out of our food. Well, he was given a speech in the White House, and as we all know, as long as you glaze Trump, you can get away with anything. This is a direct quote from RFK. Quote, Trump took $100 million from Big Pharma, but he can't be bought. What a legendary quote. Such a wise and sage quote from RFK Jr. I mean, can you even believe this stuff? He says he can't be bought, but he took $100 million. And what's great about the clip is you see Trump next to RFK, and like he's visibly pissed that RFK said that. So RFK says this to compliment Trump. Like, if Trump was really bought by Big Pharma, would he be letting me do all this crazy stuff that I'm doing? Well, RFK, Rob, the things that you're doing are making food safer. But at the same time, Trump is gutting Medicaid, gutting the welfare state, and totally unleashing any of the boundaries and protocols and regulations that were surrounding pharma companies and the way they test their drugs. They don't care about your food dyes, bro. Like, they care about selling more prescription drugs at a high price. Something else Trump did was, it's called the First Nation or a priority nation. I forget the exact term, but it's basically where the price prevailing nation, it's where the price you sell a drug, like if you sell a drug for $10 in Europe, then you have to sell it for $10 in America. That's what he's trying to do. And Trump argues that this will bring down drug prices because all these drug companies are going to have to charge the same prices that they charge abroad to the American people. Now, this sounds good in theory, but I thought Republicans were supposed to be the ones that understood economics and understand market manipulation. What this is going to do is this is just going to decrease the market share that drug companies have abroad. What Trump thinks is going to happen is that American drugs are going to get cheaper. No, American drugs are either going to stay the same or get more expensive. And these countries are going to have to sell their drugs for more money abroad, and they will lose market share. Because unlike America's broken medical system, foreign drug producers sell their drugs at an affordable price. So we as Americans sell our drugs for, we sell our drugs at cheaper prices to compete with foreign producers. But when we compete, the price is so low that we then have to charge Americans a ton of money. I mean, it's obviously more complicated than that, but like Trump thinks that this is going to lower drug prices in America. I highly doubt that. I think more likely outcomes are A, we simply lose market share abroad, or B, American prices actually go up to compensate for lost foreign market share. And thank you, producer, for confirming this. It's called most favored nation pricing, which is, once again, what I described earlier, which is the lowest price you charge in any country, you have to charge here. Trump doesn't understand trade. That's clear from the tariffs, and it's once again clear through this policy. But RFK thought it was great, so he went on the stage and said that Trump can't be bought. So let's see how this goes. I mean, the corruption has reached unprecedented I truly say this with full seriousness, unprecedented levels in all of American history. You might remember our first episode where I discussed BlackRock, the private American military that was committing war crimes on behalf of America. Well, guess what? Trump pardoned the leader of BlackRock. Trump pardoned the leader of BlackRock. He is now out of prison. He is giving military and strategic advice to Trump and his administration. And this is no joke. He has pitched the idea of a 10,000 strong private army that will patrol the United States and give accessory resources to ICE. What is happening? This is crazy, guys. This is crazy that we have a private military and they are actually thinking about deploying it on American soil. Now you're saying, Nick, you're over-exaggerating. You can't believe the news stories on this. Well, a few months ago at this point, I was reading stories about deporting Americans to El Salvador, and I thought that was crazy. And that ended up being true. So at this point, everything's on the table. And in reality, very few stories that come out these days end up being false. Most of these things end up being true when given a long enough time span. So maybe we're going to have BlackRock patrolling American streets, abducting people, which ICE has continued to do. I'm not going to put too much time on that subject, although it's important in this episode, but I really emphasized it last time, so we're going to kind of move past it on this episode. But, when it comes to, breaking laws, and I do want to talk about this a little bit, the breaking of laws by this administration is so extreme and so flagrant that they're not only breaking the laws that are written in English, but now we're breaking laws written in Latin. We're breaking the law of habeas corpus and another one called posse commutatus. Don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. It's Latin. Forgive me. But I can define both. Habeas corpus is the idea that the government cannot detain you or imprison you without stating your charges and giving you a fair trial. That's what habeas corpus is. Habeas corpus. And it translates to holding of the body. That's what it translates to. Well, we are breaking habeas corpus because we are deporting and detaining green card holders without a hearing. Now, Kristi Noem, who was mentioned in our previous advertisement, the secretary of, she runs Department of Homeland Security. She's the secretary of Homeland Security. She was asked in a Senate hearing if she knew what the definition of habeas corpus was. Any secretary of Homeland Security should know this definition. Mm-hmm. To not know the definition simply makes you unqualified for the job. She said that the definition of habeas corpus is that the president can deport anyone they want if they are suspected of being a terrorist. That was the definition she gave, which is so false. It's actually the opposite. That's actually the opposite of true. It is that if someone is suspected of being a terrorist, that they are given a trial. That's what habeas corpus is, that your charges are announced and you're given a trial. So she doesn't even understand the definition. Okay, so that's what's going on. We're breaking habeas corpus. Now, she argued that Abraham Lincoln broke habeas corpus. That's actually true. Abraham Lincoln did break habeas corpus, and that was because he was arresting Confederate soldiers. But it's kind of a technicality because Lincoln and the Union at large never recognized the secession of the Confederacy. The Confederates argued that they were an independent country and that they were fighting for their own defense. But the Union argued that the South was rebelling, but never actually left the nation of the United States. So on one hand, you have these people that we argue are citizens of America, that being the Confederates. But at the same time, they're actively waging a war against the northern states. So Lincoln arrested them. Now, that was a breach of the Constitution, and technically it was wrong. You could argue that extreme times call for extreme measures. But even Lincoln had the suspension of habeas corpus approved by Congress, whereas the suspension of it now with these green card holders has not been approved. So even there, you could argue that Lincoln acted immorally and illegally, but he was like allowed to do so because the Congress voted on his behalf. That is not the case here with Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security. The other law in Latin that we're breaking is Posse Comitatus. That law states that the United States Army cannot be actively deployed within the borders of the United States against the citizenry. Well, they just signed a law where, to get around this, they are declaring essentially the entire southern border of the United States an Army military base. The entire border, like 20 miles, like the 20-mile strip between the border of the United States and then 20 miles inland for huge swaths of like Arizona and New Mexico. They're declaring that an Army base. What this will allow is the Army to patrol that area in addition to ICE and in addition to Homeland Security and Border Patrol. But what this also does is any citizens who happen to be on that space would be considered in trespass of a military installation. So now you can even have citizens that are getting arrested. Now, to my knowledge, that hasn't happened yet, but once again, it's only a matter of time. So watch, like some liberals are going to go protest and they're going to get arrested, and now you have a constitutional crisis. This should not be happening. Like, this is so out of bounds, but there's just no one in power. I mean, the entire government has collapsed into just the executive branch. I want to close out this episode talking about Qatar. You already know what I'm going to talk about. The Qataris gave a $400 million jet to President Trump that he can use as Air Force One, because apparently the current Air Force One is old and out of date, and I believe it was given to Reagan. So like it's been around since the days of Reagan. Okay, well, Nick, that's a good thing. You know, Qatar is our ally. Boeing is behind on their order for the new plane. They can't retrofit the new plane with security measures. Qatar is doing us a favor. Let's just take the jet. No problem. Well, guys, it's not a gift to the presidency. It's a gift to Donald Trump. When he leaves the White House, he gets to keep the jet. Like, it's so crazy. Like, they gave him a gift and they're saying, oh, well, when he leaves office, they're going to donate this jet to the Trump Presidential Library. And I'm sure you guys know every president has a library, but library is kind of an outdated term. It's really a museum. And they say, well, Reagan has the old Air Force One at his personal library. Well, yeah, it's decommissioned. It's not a working plane. The plane was decommissioned. No, Trump gets to keep using this plane for personal use. Him and his foundation get to use it for personal use. Okay, well, do you really think for a second that this new plane isn't going to be wired and bugged to the high heavens? They're going to be listening to every word that we say in this thing, no matter what security protocols or whatever we put on this plane. But even if we could fully securitize the plane, it is a clear conflict of interest, and it is against the Emoluments Clause of the United States, which Trump breaks on a daily basis at this point. The President of the United States or any elected official cannot receive foreign gifts, donations, or bribes. There's no other way to describe this than a bribe. It's a $400 million jet. And now there's reports that they're even going to pay to fuel it. I mean, what is going on? Like, this is so corrupt. It is not, it's just so crazy. It's unfathomable. The corruption is disgusting. Do you guys remember when the Republicans were upset because the social media giants in the Democratic Party censored Hunter Biden's laptop? Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Or when we got upset that Hunter Biden was given, I think it was $20 million by Burisma, a Ukrainian oil company. We now have Saudi Arabia giving $2 billion to Jared Kushner, buying out Trump's casinos and like buying out entire floors, but only using one room. We have him getting donations of jets. All these oil people are giving him money. Corporate Americans are paying $500 million to join his executive club. No one bats an eye. Everyone's okay with it. So when the next Democrat takes office, I don't want to hear anything about your $20 million scandals. Those are rookie numbers. We got to bump those up. You're competing with Trump. He's getting $500 million a pop just for his executive club so he can pass policy. No, I don't support corruption. I've said this before. I'm okay with us bribing foreigners, but foreigners can't be bribing us. So I don't support corruption by the Democrats. I don't support corruption by the Republicans. But what I'm simply saying is none of my conservative friends, I know you guys listen. I know you're there on the other side of the screen. Why aren't you calling me upset that Trump just got given a jet? Why aren't you calling me upset that it's just pay to play politics? Why aren't you guys upset about this when you were upset about the laptop and you were upset about Burisma? I'm just saying, let's be consistent here. Let's just be consistent. Let's be intellectually honest and consistent. I really appreciate you guys listening. I hope you had a great time. Life is about to get crazy, so I think I'm going to have to disappear until maybe August. But that's okay, because in these breaks, I always come to you guys with, I hope that you feel it's top tier content. I hope you guys enjoy the military parade on June the 14th. I hope you guys have a lovely summer, and farewell. Bye-bye.